Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 49 of Brews Less Travel, the podcast exploring the best uncharted beer cities across the U.S. I'm your host, Brian, and we've got a new city to feature, which means new breweries, new beers, and a new co-host, actually, plural co-hosts. Please, everybody, help me in welcoming Glenn and Ethan from the Beervengers podcast. How's it going, guys?
It's going great, Brian. Yeah, I understand that probably the reason you rarely have two of us here is it's so hard saying all those consonants together.
Guests,
hosts.
Guests.
Have fun editing this one, Franny, with all the hard S's.
We're getting close to beatboxing on this one. You throw all those together, it's going to be good. Hey, Brian, thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thanks for coming. So, can you tell everybody at home a little bit about yourself? We got a little icebreaker here. Break the ice. Get things going. Guys.
Well, Glenn, why don't you go first?
Oh, sure. I didn't know which would be more polite. I was still trying to figure that. Sorry, wrong show. I am Glenn. I'm coming here out of Astoria in New York City in Queens. I was born in California. I grew up in Ohio, but I've been in New York for the last quarter of a century. My favorite styles of beer are reflected in my Beervenger name, which is Captain, Porter, Brown, Stout. All of my favorite beers are listed all there together. And I guess I should probably say something that's not about beer, even though that's the main reason that we're all here. I was noticing that our brewery tonight, Lake Monster, I felt like I'd heard about it before, but not associated with Minnesota, because my sister lives in Vermont, and they have a baseball team there called the Lake Monsters. And she has actually sung the national anthem before at least one of their games. So,
yeah.
Wow. Right.
So that's,
Shout out to my buddy Todd, who lives there and is a huge minor league baseball fan, and maybe even saw that national anthem be sung.
Well, I had a feeling that if our founders were here, that they probably wouldn't be surprised by any of that.
Oh, no, it goes all the way back.
Trivial to those of us in the room, though.
Yeah. Well, and hey, folks, my name is Ethan. I'm also coming to you from New York City. However, that's not where I started my existence, career, beer drinking adventures, because I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So
that's an interesting city.
It is. It's an interesting one. It's got a twin on the other side. We don't talk about it. It's fine. So I'm really excited to be hanging out this week, repping some of my old hometown misadventures. Potentially, we'll see. Yeah. I am definitely, as I have sort of grown in my beer drinking, as I move from the Midwest to the East Coast, I continue to take on this New England style IPA. Although a fondness for my roots are bringing me back to what is now being called the Midwest IPA, which perhaps we can talk a little bit more about. And when I'm not drinking beer with people on the internet or walking around New York City talking about things, I basically get paid to talk for a living. And I started that when I was pretty young, because my weird non-beer fact is that when I was in freshman in high school back in my hometown of Minneapolis, I got massive extra credit and really only passed algebra because I decided to memorize pi to 100 digits to push myself over the edge. So wow. I will use my words to get me where I need to go, and so I'm excited to be chatting with beer with you guys for the next couple of weeks.
Since you said you did that in high school, correct?
Yes.
Have you memorized more digits, or do you feel like you've lost?
I've probably lost. I do annually on the Pi Day, which is, March 14th, I will do a recitation, and I feel like it's gotten foggier. It's gotten a little foggier in there. I don't know that we still get to the 100 digits all the time. We get close, but I don't think we've quite made it there. I'll have to double check myself on something at some point. Yeah. But it's good to honor the day. Speaking of not made up, very important holidays that we should all respect, I would like to wish all of you May the 4th be with you.
Yes, happy Star Wars Day, everyone.
Yes.
Happy Star Wars Day, everyone. And May the 4th be with you. I wish
for those who celebrate.
Yeah, for the respect to those. Freedom from Star Wars as well. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Shout out to everybody at home, and shout out, welcome back to our subscribers, and a special shouts out to our new subscribers. How yin's doing? Well, this month, we just left Des Moines, Iowa, which is a fantastic city. We had a lot of fun there, but we're moving north this month to the state of hockey. As you can see here, we have two co-hosts, Ethan and Glenn, and this month we're featuring two cities. I'm very excited that our featured cities for this month are the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, as you can see from our viewers
What?
can see.
Oh,
from
so
the
we
card
will be
there.
talking about St. Paul.
We will. Yes, we will also be talking about
Sorry,
St. Paul.
Ethan.
As much shade as Ethan's going to throw off of it, at it
It's
right
a-
off the back. Just throw one of the cities that we're featuring under the bus. Great way to start the month, Ethan.
I know. I got to make sure
Thank
that St. Paul knows where they stand in my heart. Even though I will say I've drunk a lot more St. Paul brewed beer than I think I have Minneapolis brewed beer. So
Ooh.
I know.
Okay.
This is when the punches get thrown, I'm afraid.
Okay, and speaking of drinking beer from the Twin Cities area, tonight we'll be drinking beers from our featured brewery, Lake Monster Brewing Company from St. Paul.
Exactly.
We're gonna be drinking their Last Fathom and their Apricot Goza, and we're gonna get things kicked off. Like let's get into it. Let's get into our first beer, boys. Let's crack this. Let's crack this Last Fathom open. Start
right.
drinking.
Fantastic. I'm thirsty, I gotta say. Okay.
Yes.
Already foaming over the top a little bit there.
I have to say that I shamelessly ate not one but two buffalo chicken hoagies before we started this podcast, so I'm very thirsty right now.
Brian, you have made all the correct choices in life. That's just what I'm learning tonight. All right.
It is a wonderful food truck that makes buffalo chicken hoagies with the chicken meat from confit cooked wings.
Ooh.
But we're not. This isn't a food podcast. This is a beer podcast. Cheers, boys.
Cheers. Oh my gosh.
So this is Lake Monster Brewing Company's Last Fathom. It is a wild rice dunkel lager. Wild rice
fun.
is the official state grain of the state of Minnesota. And the official description says a Munich-style dunkel brewed with the addition of Minnesota's official state grain, wild rice. This is a really nice beer, 5.5% ABV. Nice dark lager. Ethan, what are you thinking?
I mean, I right off the bat, I love all the beautiful sort of like fizzy head that you've got that's kind of now receding down to a gorgeous edge foam. And I've had a lot of wild rice in my life. It's sort of a rite of passage if you grow up in Minnesota. In fact, I have wild rice in my kitchen right now because that's just what happens. It comes home with you. It travels.
Okay.
So I've never had a beer with it, but this kind of toasty caramel color is what I'd expect from something like that. So I'm really kind of intrigued by all the caramelly notes that I'm already getting off the nose.
Nice.
Yeah.
And our resident dark beer expert for the month of May, Glenn, what are you thinking?
You know, I honestly love this one. Even though for me every season is stout season, if I'm ever to go a little bit lighter in the off season and the one where it's harder to find the stouts, I can always enjoy a good black lager, or in this case, this dunkel. And I love those caramelly notes that you're talking about. Nice that sort of bready texture to it. It's got a strong character, but still a bit of a light body.
I love the dark lagers because you get that beautiful roast character, those dark caramely tones, but then it just gets toned down on the end by that crisp lager finish, and it's such a nice exemplification of balance in beer, you know.
Yeah.
And this is great. Lake Monster, great brewing company out of St. Paul. Actually, the last place I visited on my way out of town.
Really?
When I was there. Yeah. I spent 3 days there actually, and just by chance of schedule, this was the last place I visited before I left the wonderful Twin Cities. And Lake Monster's actually been around for some time. They started in 2013. They actually started contracting with a brewery out of Wisconsin. That contract brewing, if you do not know, is when one brewery pays another brewery to say, here's our recipe. Please brew this beer for us. We'll pay for all the materials and labor and stuff like that, and we'll pay for you to package it. And then we're going to sell it under our brand, and we'll deal with all the regulation. And that's how a lot of breweries get started. That's actually how Sam Adams got started. I don't know how many people know that. Actually, right here in Pittsburgh.
Hey,
Now, Brian, I'm curious for contract brewing, do they always just pass the labor on to the brewery, or do they ever like rent space in the brewery and brew it themselves there?
That happens as well, Glenn. I believe,
because that's how I always assumed contract brewing was. It never even occurred to me the way you're describing it right now.
Yeah, there are breweries that exist. We're just to get into a contract brewing tangent. There are breweries that exist that just brew other people's beer all the time. They just contract brew. A very famous one, or I don't know, not very famous one, but pretty well known one here in southwestern PA is City Brewing Company, which exists in the old Rolling Rock facility in Latrobe.
Oh.
And they brew. I know they used to brew all the Pittsburgh Brewing Company stuff. They brewed Red Stripe there for a while. They brewed Four Loco there. They brewed Twisted Tea there. They brewed seltzer there. They brewed all kinds of different stuff there. And then Glenn, what you're referring to, I think I've heard that called like gypsy brewing.
Well, that's what I've heard.
I will go around and like, hey, let me rent your tanks.
See, here's the thing: is that I just assumed contract brewing is what we were calling that, since we generally don't say gypsy brewing anymore.
Pikey brewing.
I just figured there was essentially the same thing, but contract was the safer thing to say. But it's interesting that I know there's one as well, and a big one in Wisconsin that is almost entirely other people's beer. For instance, Collective Arts, which is in Hamilton, Ontario.
Yep.
Their American beer is brewed in Wisconsin because even though it has to come, for some of us, Hamilton might be closer. It's still easier for us to get beer from Wisconsin than from Ontario.
Yeah. So the contract route is the way that many breweries will go because you don't have to buy all your equipment. You don't have to invest in your own space. You can get your product out there and start to make a name for yourself. And that's exactly what Lake Monster did. They started contract brewing in 2013. In 2015, they opened the tap room and production space that I was lucky enough to visit. It's at the foot of the Vandalia Water Tower, which is this 80-year-old, 100-foot tall water tower that sits in front of this historic building that Lake Monster is now inside of. It's very beautiful. And for those watching at home, you can see some of the wonderful art as our background for tonight. And for those checking out the YouTube, shout out to our YouTube subscribers. Like and subscribe, of course. We will be showing pictures of the wonderful brewing and the wonderful building. If you're listening, just go look it up. Google Lake Monster. It's a beautiful production facility. You know what? Actually, you should Google your city to Minneapolis. You should put in flight information. You should fly there and you should go to Lake Monster and drink their beers. Just go all the way with it.
Minneapolis St. Paul is a lovely airport. You could get on some nice public transit. It'll get you to downtown Minneapolis or St. Paul. It's all good. You can don't drink and drive. Just take the Metro Transit. Exactly.
Yeah.
It goes right there. Yeah, I was looking at the website and I was impressed that their bio on the website seemed to be written in local dialect. That was kind of fun. And in addition to that, I loved that some of their I'm a big fan of some of the people who they're a big fan of and have named some of their beers after. Everyone from Prince, obviously, because he's a local, but also Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh,
they've had beers inspired by both of them.
That's a wide range of inspiration.
Yeah. I don't remember what the RBG one was called, but the Prince one was called Purple Rain. So I just assumed it had to be that.
It's right there.
Yeah.
You assume it was purple too. We got a nice sticker from Lake Monster as well, included in the box for our subscribers. Put that on your.
With a cute little like monster tail and an eye sticking out of it. Looks like a very appropriate lake monster. And being the land of 10,000 lakes, seems like a reasonable name for a brewery if we're thinking naming here.
Absolutely. It's exactly why Lake Monster is named why they are. But not only the lake monsters that may dwell in the Minnesota lakes, but lake monsters throughout the world, such as Nessie, Champy,
of course.
Lake Monster that's referenced by the Vermont baseball team that was brought up.
Oh, that's the one. Is it from Lake Champlain, I guess, right?
Yeah,
okay,
Champy.
That would make sense.
Yep. And Minnesota's own Peppy.
Don't forget about Peppy. Peppy, if you
Peppy.
Don't sleep on Peppy. No, you need a lake monster for Lake Peplin and also for the mighty Mississippi River, which separates these two fair cities.
I'm learning so much tonight.
I know. If I remember going all the way back that there was a whole competition to see if we could catch Peppy on film, and you got a $50,000 reward. You had to have a clear picture, and biologists from the University of Minnesota had to confirm DNA from the monster, and then fame and fortune would be yours. And I'm pretty sure no one's founder yet.
Pretty sure.
But here's the thing. I'm still holding out hope. Those University of Minnesota scientists are very busy, so they might just not have gotten around to the DNA verification yet.
That is a long way to go. They're like, yeah, well, you can do a picture, but we also need DNA verification.
I know.
Just reward somebody for the picture if they fake the picture really well. Like,
I agree. Well, and I like to believe that the 10,000 plus lakes of Minnesota have got to have some monsters in them. Like it's like aliens in outer space, right? There's just so many opportunities. There's got to be a monster somewhere. There really does.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we've talked about Minneapolis, we've talked about St. Paul, but technically the Twin Cities is the area in and around the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Although the United States Office of Management and Budget officially designates 15 counties as the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington, Minnesota, Wisconsin Metropolitan Statistical Area.
Okay, so
it's just easier to say Twin Cities.
There's a lot going on there. That's a lot. There's a lot happening there, okay? Because there's a lot. No, because you got Bloomington, which is the Mall of America. Then, you just hop, skip, and a jump over to Wisconsin, which, let's remember, is a different state. Different state, which has their own whole beer situation over there, which I think, is something that's worth noting. But the thing that is being really lumped together here, which I just need to get this off my chest, Minnesota and Wisconsin have a huge cheese rivalry. I don't know if you're aware of this,
I'm not.
I didn't either. No,
Wisconsin.
I thought it was just Wisconsin.
No, Wisconsin says that they are the cheese state, and if you follow football, they've got the hats and the cheese heads and all that thing. But the state of Minnesota actually produces more milk.
All right, I believe it.
So I feel like I'm glad we're meeting this out just a little bit more, just to be clear.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense that with all the land and the same climate and everything, you'd have access to all the same sort of things. I don't know. Maybe is it that you have things that are in some ways more interesting to promote than cheese, and that's why Wisconsin glommed onto it, and Minnesota said, you can have the cheese. You guys are really invested. You're excited about the cheese. We're going to talk about other stuff. And I'm not talking about lutefisk here.
Well, and if you have to, here's the thing: don't knock it till you tried it. Okay,
yeah.
It is dried out fish that's soaked in lye and then reconstituted with a lovely jelly finish. You put some butter, salt, and pepper on that, and you hang out with all the 80-year-old Lutheran ladies down at the church down the street, and that is some excellent Christmas time fare. That said, it is very much an acquired taste. I have tried to convince some more local friends to it, and they are not really down with the lutefisk. So
no. So that whole area, Twin Cities, about 3 million people that live there. What I find very interesting overall about Minnesota, I'm a huge hockey fan growing up in,
of course,
Pittsburgh, idolized Mario Lemieux. Penn's got a win last night. That when we recorded this, neither here nor there. But Minnesota is known as the state of hockey, and they call it that because there is literally almost 1% of the population of the state is registered as some kind of hockey player with the USA Hockey Association.
Oh, wow.
Literally, almost 60,000 people, 55,000 players are registered with USA Hockey. Almost 1% of the population of Minnesota plays hockey in some way. There are more American-born hockey players that go on to play pro hockey that come out of Minnesota than anywhere else. So I am very much down with Minnesota.
Minnesota sounds like it's almost an honorary Canadian province.
Yes.
I mean, if you hear born and bred Minnesotans talk, we got those long O's in there. We do say sorry a little bit. So we're right there. There's even a chunk. Yeah, there's even a little chunk of Minnesota that's kind of surrounded by Canada. It's just out there. It's separated by a lake. So we got a connection to our friends up north.
It's close, yeah. And isn't Ontario loaded with lakes too? I think Ontario is very lakey as well.
I think you're right about that. There's Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
There's a great.
I'm sure there are more.
Yes, but there's one of them. There's at least one. We have one
single
confirmed.
Great Lake. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't know there'd be a lake quiz today.
Yeah, tune in to Brews Less Traveled. Lake facts.
Lake facts.
Bodies of water less traveled. Onto the beer.
Yes. Thank you.
Let's talk about Emerson Lake and Palmer.
Exactly.
80
Ricky Lake.
breweries. Around 80 breweries in the Twin Cities.
That is
more
so
like
wild.
puns. It's crazy. There's so many breweries. To give context, here in Pittsburgh, a lot of people think we have a decent beer scene. We have about 55, I think, in the metro area. There's about 2 million people here, and Minneapolis, St. Paul is rocking a solid around 80 breweries in that area. Surly being the oldest craft brewery in the Twin Cities. A lot of people probably familiar with Surly, especially in the last few years, making big publicity across the country. Top 30 brewery in the country, I believe, in terms of overall output.
It doesn't surprise
huge
me.
brewery. And yeah, because there's so many breweries, because we have 2 cities, or if you're the United States Office of Management and Budget, because we have in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington, Minnesota, Wisconsin Metropolitan Statistical Area, we have 5 breweries we're featuring this month. So we're featuring Lake Monster. We're going to be featuring Uda Pils and Modus next week, or Modus, excuse me. We're going to be featuring Fair State the week after that, and Falling Knife. Great breweries from the Twin Cities area. And speaking of breweries in the Twin Cities area, there are some really cool things going on there this week, and we're going to get into why we don't have a guest tonight in a second here. But guys, you think it's a good time to get into this Goza?
All right.
Perpetually, always.
Let's take a beer break. Did you know that Minneapolis has the largest enclosed skybridge system in the world? What's a skybridge, you ask? Well, they are bridge-like structures that connect buildings over a street. Minneapolis has 9.5 miles of enclosed pathways connecting 80 city blocks, and while they are a refuge to pedestrians in the colder months nowadays, they were actually originally conceived as a city planning solution, rerouting pedestrians from busy sidewalks and streets and into the sky. Well, they were originally built in the 60s, so that 1920s voice doesn't really work here. Anyway, let's get back to the show. Yes.
I will say I am digging sort of the minimalist can art, the fact that whatever the major thing that we're highlighting seems to be grabbed by some sort of lake monster pulling its way down. I like their branding. It really is. And you know exactly what you're getting. Is this lake monster picking apricots off of a tree?
It is.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here.
So beer number 2 here. It's Lake Monster's Apricot Goza. It is a tart German-style wheat beer brewed with sea salt, coriander, and apricot, and that's from the official Untapped description there. 4.9% ABV. Just a classic Goza conditioned on some apricot.
Ooh. And that apricot is jumping right up.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
cheers.
Really.
Cheers.
Every ounce of that, it's just coming right out of the glass in a beautiful way. Oh, slancha for sure. Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The salt for me is very present. Oftentimes I feel like sometimes with the Goza I don't feel quite as much salt, but for me I'm getting a lot of that nice salt character in this one, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how the salt is it's interesting because the salt sort of does the job so the fruit doesn't have to be sour.
Very true.
So it's like it's technically a sour, but the Goza is completely its own thing. And sometimes I kind of prefer Gozas to sours, and I really like the saltiness. I've had a few like really great margarita Gozas I love, and this one is outstanding.
The salinity brings a nice balance to everything, and I feel like the apricot really plays right in line with both of those balancing ingredients in here, both the salt and the sour. And this is a very, very enjoyable beer. As Kit Kat and Matt P have pointed out, the apricot is just excellent in this beer. It's just so enjoyable. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Yes. The Lake Monster clearly picked some ripe ones for us. Excellent job. Good job, Peppy.
Yeah, it got me thinking. I'm not even positive. I have a hard time thinking if I've ever had a ripe apricot, because I feel most of the apricots I've had in my life have been dried.
Really?
I feel like I had like dried apricots as a kid a lot.
I don't think I've had a ripe apricot. I've had ripe peaches.
Yeah.
Other
Oh,
stone
definitely
fruits,
peaches. Yeah.
nectarines.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't feel like I've even. And that's the thing. When I try and imagine in my head what a fresh apricot looks like, all I can see in my head is a peach. It's like.
Do they look? They look similar, right?
Probably, yeah. It's probably not wrong, but yeah.
I mean, if we look at what our little monster's holding, that definitely has a peach element to it. It looks kind of appley. I see the curve, but I don't. It's not quite as fuzzy as I'd expect.
Right,
I guess.
and a little more leafy.
A little more leafy, yeah. I mean, I'm down.
Kit Kat actually questions whether people actually eat fresh apricot, but Jonathan says they are like tiny peaches.
A junior peach from Scotty. I like it.
All right. Okay, cool.
Junior peach. Yeah.
It's a peach with something to strive for.
So an apricot is to a peach as like, say, a tangerine is to an orange.
I'll take that.
Kinda.
I think this is reasonable.
A mandarin is to an orange.
There you go. Okay. Yeah.
Y'all, we're going to kill the SATs, just FYI, with these analogies.
Facts. Yeah, fruit facts.
Fruit facts and lake facts. That's what you come here for.
Yeah, that's fruit lake facts.
That's good.
Yeah, beer is great. So we are kicking off May's shows here, and our shows featuring the Twin Cities with a little bit of an unorthodox episode. You know, we're just here shooting the shit, and that is because we cannot get a guest in the beer world tonight because something massive is happening in the Twin Cities right now. So right now, the Craft Brewers Conference is happening in Minneapolis for the first time. Glenn and Ethan, do you know anything about the Craft Brewers Conference? Have you ever attended?
I have never attended. It's funny. I would imagine that the reason we can't get a guest is either because they're at the Craft Beer Conference, or if they're not there, they don't want to admit that they're not there.
No.
Ethan, you're feeling.
I have never been. I have known people who have been through different varieties and have watched people's Instagram stories tell me all about it. But Brian, have you ever been?
Yes, I have been twice.
There you go.
And thank you for setting me up for that. If you know that, if you knew, that's where I was going. So the Craft Brewers Conference and Brew Expo America is the largest gathering of brewery industry professionals, and as Glenn alluded to, everybody in the industry in the Minneapolis area is either at the conference or they are at their tap rooms, because there are well over 12,000 beer industry professionals that have ascended on the Minneapolis-St. Paul area from the 2nd of May through the 5th of May. We are recording this now on the 4th of May, the night before the last day of the conference. So most of the biggest parties of the conference are happening literally as we're talking right now. So everybody that's in the beer world, everybody, craft beer professionals, huge cheers to you. Enjoy yourselves out there. Minneapolis is a wonderful city. Minneapolis-St. Paul is a wonderful city to host CBC, and I can't imagine how much fun everybody is having. But that's why we're here. No guests.
Now, you said you've been to it twice. Tell me again what the last one you were at was.
So I have been both years. It's been in Denver recently. It usually switches locations every year. This is the first year it's been in the Twin Cities. Last year, 2021, it was in Denver, and there was very low attendance because of, this whole big thing called COVID. Don't know if you've heard of it or not. There was only 6,000 people in attendance last year. When I went the other time I've gone in 2019, it was also held in Denver. There was over 12,000 people, and attendance this year is rumored to have been near that level. So CBC came back big time, and that's why it's such a big deal. Everybody is not only going to this new city for the first time that's hosting it, but it's the first time that people are feeling really comfortable going back to this huge industry event. And those tap rooms in Minneapolis and St. Paul are just going to be mobbed with beer industry professionals drinking everything they have to offer. So it's a good time. Good for all them. But that's why we're here, just the three of us. We have three excellent guests. I'm really excited for our guests this month that we have lined up for our next 3 episodes. But tonight, you just got Glenn, Ethan, and Brian. Your buddies. Your beer
drinking buddies.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat said that the unorthodox ones are their favorites.
Yeah.
No disrespect to our wonderful guests, because we've had a lot of wonderful guests, both on the ones I've been on and the ones I've listened to. I always have great guests, but yeah, there is kind of a fun, special energy. Like it's it's like a fun little something when we get to just hang out, just us.
Yeah, just a treat to have some drinks together.
We kind of buried the lead. We really didn't. We haven't talked about that yet. But both Glenn and Ethan have hosted this very show back when Molly was the wonderful host of Brews Less Traveled. Guys, it's great to have you back. We got lots of cool stuff to get into this month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a ton coming out, but I want to ask a little bit about when you go to CBC and you've got all this sort of stuff going on, who's there? What are you doing? Like, what's a day in the life of CBC, before all the late night industry parties? Like, are you going to panels? Are you tasting beers? Like, what's going on? What can we imagine these people are doing in Minneapolis right now?
It's all that. It's a huge expo. So all of the equipment manufacturers, aluminum can manufacturers, everybody that's selling stuff to the beer industry professionals are there at the Brew Expo America. And that's a giant floor. Everybody's there with their big setups, and you can walk around there, and the booths that are run by the hop farms and the material suppliers, they'll be pouring beer, so you can get beer all day long. That's wonderful. And that's open from 8 o'clock until sometime in the late afternoon.
8 a.m. beers, that is a commitment. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a conference. We're having a good time. It also consists of a very traditional industry conference. There's educational seminars, there's a keynote speech, and there's keynote speakers, and there's a state of the industry presentation, which is what a lot of brewery people go to see and are excited to see, because that is basically the chief economist from the Brewers Association, which is the trade association that puts together CBC, presents the state of the industry, what the craft beer world did financially in the previous year, how are taproom sales doing, how are off-premise sales doing, basically, as it sounds, the state of the industry, how is everything doing. And it's a big moment every year when those numbers get released, to see the growth of the industry, especially this year, as people are kind of waiting with bated breath to see how things have turned around since the last CBC was actually only 8 months ago. It's usually only an annual thing. CBC this past year was held in September. It's normally held in April or May after the closing of the annual books from the previous year, so they can put together that economic report for everybody. So quick turnaround time this year. They're going to everyone is interested to see what happened with last year's financials and how breweries are rebounding from what was obviously a very tumultuous time for all small businesses, and pretty much for everybody, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all drank a lot of beer, so I hope that everyone was supporting their local breweries through all of that, because I know many of the ones here in New York, and I'm sure in places like Minneapolis and all around the country, did take a hit, as they had to figure out how to go from kegs and, bars to cans and home delivery. So
yes. Yeah. Home delivery was a big part of it, especially here in New York, where they just sort of suspended a lot of the laws as far as like letting a lot of breweries deliver directly to people's homes, not having to go through the middleman. So like a bunch of breweries, I took advantage of that a few times myself.
It was wonderful. It's all, the hindsight's always 20/20. The past is always more nostalgic, but some part of me wants to go back to that day of like, oh, there's nothing to do. Let's just order beer. Get it delivered here. It's from a local brewery. It's wonderful. It's going to support these people that I like, and I love their beer and I love their business, and maybe that's a little nostalgia looking at the past with Rose.
Well, I think the fact that we did, I think the fact that we did that so much is part of how the non-alcoholic beer industry started to suddenly flourish as well, because maybe we overdid it just a little bit.
Maybe, overdid it. So, good news for me and other Yinzers. Like I mentioned, this is the first time the Twin Cities has hosted the conference and expo. The Twin Cities also hosted Homebrew Con, which is the big homebrewer equivalent of the Craft Brewers Conference. It's put on by the American Brewers Association, which is the BA's homebrewers arm. Okay. And it's said that Homebrew Con is the trial run for CBC. So about 5 years ago, Minneapolis St. Paul hosted Homebrew Con, and the host of Homebrew Con this year is none other than Pittsburgh, PA. So hopefully in a few years we'll be talking about CBC in Pittsburgh, and we'll be nerding out about that, or at least I will.
Well, yeah. Do you think by then you'll be getting back into brewing your own stuff, Brian? Because I know we talked to you recently about how that you have very, very, very good personal reasons why you haven't been brewing much for the last couple of years. But I'm wondering if you're trying to figure out a way to, open that window again.
I think so. I mean, by that time, my daughter will be old enough that she could be a glorified assistant brewer.
She can help you. Yeah.
Help me mash in. She can make green out.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This podcast has gone very Pittsburgh-centered since I've taken over, and I think to nobody's pleasure but my own. But we move forward.
Hey, there's things to look forward to. It's good to have something out there that we're going for, right?
Yeah. Celebrate with me.
Exactly.
So to wrap things up here, we got a couple of get to know you questions. We're gonna answer here and then wrap things up. So to each of you. You don't have to name names, but do you remember the worst beer that you ever had, Glenn?
Okay, I don't know if these ones I'm thinking of were the full-on worst beer I've ever had, but I think they're ones that I thought were kind of interesting at first, and then the more I had it, the more they not so much. There's a couple of them. One was it was from. Okay, we're naming it, but there was bacon. It was bacon was sort of a theme in this beer. And I had a taste of it, and I'm like, you know what? That's really interesting. I'll have a full pour of that. And about halfway through, I realized, I think maybe a taste was all of this one that I really needed. It's a wonderful brewery. It's a noble failure. I won't name the brewery, but it was. I just think this is funny because we have to say it. It was named after Cloris Leachman's character from Young Frankenstein, Frau Blucher. What the connection is between her and bacon, I can't tell you. Yeah. But it was a good try. But once I had that one, I'm not having that one again. The other one is one I had a little more recently. It was a Basil Lime. I think it was some kind of a saison, and that seemed like that would be really interesting. And I had it, and it was like, wow, this is just way too basil-y. I mean, there was it's nice. It's nice to have like that hint of basil. Yeah, I mean, I love making my own fresh pesto, but I just had it and like, oh, that's too much basil. So I get those don't necessarily. Those are I think those are they're beers that didn't quite work, but I have to take my hat off to them for I think it was a noble failure.
Well, Glenn, you're getting some good recommendations for some potential retries on your maple bacon and porters in the stout from Troy and Nick there.
Well, Rogue, I know that's from Oregon. I don't know if the Voodoo Maple Bacon makes it all the way across to our side of the country. And then where's Black Flag, Nick? I don't either. You guys know Black Flag? I'm sure Nick will tell me in the chat in a moment.
Maryland.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, definitely there. We can. That might make it here, or it might be worthy of a road trip. And yeah. Again, and again, like so, you saw Brian sort of perk up when I said that whole Basil Lime thing, and I'm sure that someone can do that well, and even the brewery I went to might do that well in the future. It didn't work out this time.
Ethan, same question.
Well, I mean, I've had a couple where it was like a swing and a miss from lovely craft breweries. But here's the thing: if you're swinging hard and you're missing, I'm still proud of you. Like, we might be at T-ball stage. We might not be graduating even to the minor leagues or even like, coach pitch. But as long as we're trying, like, I'm proud of us that we're working on stuff here. But truly the worst beer that I have ever had, I was in northern Wisconsin, and perhaps this explains some of the feels here, but I had recently turned 21, and, it was a time of my life when I figured it would be a good time to explore this brewed beverage that we have. And I went to the local Piggly Wiggly, which is an excellent grocery store chain for those of you who have not visited.
What city were you in at the time?
I was in Door County, Wisconsin.
Okay, this is wow.
Yes.
I didn't realize they went that far north. Okay.
I thought they were southern chains. Yeah. Okay.
No, they got one up there. They got one. And I do recall. Yes, I miss Piggly Wiggly too. Much love to them. But I do recall walking in there and being like, I know nothing of this beer thing. Look, there's something that literally just says beer on it. It was store brand generic beer. I went home, I drank it, I spit it out, and I dumped the rest of it. And that was the low point for me. Now, I was just 21 at that point, so clearly everything was uphill. But yeah, generic brand Piggly Wiggly beer. I'm gonna say hard pass.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna piggyback on that one and say that it was good for you for tossing that one aside, because if I had to say what is objectively the worst beers that I had, I would probably say many of the beers that I had in my first several years of beer drinking, because there were no good. I'm old enough that there weren't good craft beers didn't really exist, and what I could afford was all garbage. But we drank it anyway, or we chose not to drink it. You know, as I think your origin story has a lot of in it as well.
Yes, for sure. But we got to turn it now on to Brian.
Oh yeah. So you started this. So you must have a good answer.
I've definitely made some of my own beers that didn't turn out very well early on in my homebrew days that were nearly undrinkable. Acetate comes to mind, like a real bad. Yeah. But I think the most like off-putting beer I ever had is there was a brewery that did a pizza beer.
Okay.
And it tasted like marinara sauce and bread and cheese in a beer. It was awful. It was really just like the age-old quote of they spent too much time figuring out how and didn't ask why. Because
that makes sense.
I feel like conceptually we might be onto something, because pizza and beer, excellent combo, but oof, ouch.
One of the subscribers in the chat nailed, which maybe has picked up on which beer specifically I'm alluding to. But yes, Mitch, good call there. So boys, we got 4 more episodes this month. Glenn and Ethan, what are you excited for in these episodes covering the Twin Cities? Ethan first, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I first off now have an additional reason to like check in with my dad to be like, hey, guess what I'm drinking? Are you drinking this too? But I am excited about all of the Twin Cities breweries that you've got coming. But I am very excited to hear from Fair State. They're a very cool organization that does really great beer, representing the Minnesota State Fair, of course, which is a massive sort of Twin Cities and a whole statewide thing. But they've got a cool organization. I've had some of their beers, and I'm just excited to like chat with them and find out how they do what they do and what they're all excited about. So while I'm excited for everybody, I am excited to be chatting with those guys.
Nico's very cool. I may have a bit of a small man crush on Nico. He's
choice.
Very cool and very kind to me when I visited. So excited to talk to him in a couple weeks. Glenn, what are you excited for?
I got my box a little bit late, and so I haven't had a chance to do a whole lot of research, and I have to say the same thing that Ethan just said.
Yep.
Fair State is really what I'm most. I know I will learn things about the other breweries that I will make me love them very much as well. But I first learned about Fair State early on in our podcast. We had one of a proprietor of a local place, actually, where my beer glass is from tonight, the Beer and Cheese Collective here in Astoria. And they're our sponsor, and they give us beers regularly, and they were very excited to give us some Fair State just because of they were glad to have it here, and glad that because of their practices, the fact that they're a co-op, the fact that their union is just it's very, they have a really different business model from a lot of breweries around, and it's more would do well to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah. And they have very great beers. Not that, I mean, they're a very cool story. Modest has a cool story.
Modest is a great story.
Beers.
Yeah.
Udapils has a very cool story. Gorgeous brewery, exceptional German, European style beers. And Falling Knife is just
Of course.
one of the funnest nights I've ever had at a single brewery in my life, and I cannot wait to talk to Dan again. So we have an excellent slate of episodes lined up. So
Now,
stay
Brian,
tuned.
I love that you said this brewery was the last one you went to. Are we doing
Yes.
this whole thing memento style? Are you going from the your last to your first, or is it there's no?
Let me see.
Or maybe you just did it when people are available.
No, we
No.
are. No, we actually, this is last, and then everything else is in order after this.
Oh, okay, very
Yeah,
good.
I went to Modest, Uda Pills, Fair State, Falling Knife, Lake Monster. In that
All
order.
right.
So, yep.
So the further in we get, it'll be like, what happened? When was I there? But you have to. It's a good thing you took notes.
Yep.
Yes.
I have handy notes here.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you so much, Ethan and Glenn, for co-hosting. Looking forward to these Twin Cities episodes with you. Do you want to plug your podcast before we get out of here? I heard your most recent guest was exceptional, handsome.
Yeah. Well,
lovely.
I mean, we have a lot of great guests, but the last one was someone it was great because we were able to do sort of cross-reference stuff because he has his own podcast and he is you. And we've actually had a number of guests who have been co-hosts of this show.
Friends of the pod.
And interestingly enough, coming up really soon, we're going to have the original host of Brews Less Traveled back on again because she sent us some free beer. So that's the easiest way to get on the podcast is to send us beer. And we're like, okay, well, that's you're officially a sponsor and you're going to be on the show. We've had a few questions on here as to why Ethan and I are wearing the same shirt because they could only see the top part of it. And actually, you're doing a very good job there, Ethan. I'm going to do another thing over here and give them an even better view of it. This is our logo. We're the Beervengers podcast. Up in the one corner, you can see that it's the Beervengers. That's where we're on all the social medias, thebeervengers.com as well. But that is the t-shirts that we are wearing are that's our logo. So that's why we're doing it. Since Brian decided he wanted to have the Beervengers on, we brought a little more Beervenger stuff here. And what were you going to say?
I was going to say, so feel free to come and join us. We are just a bunch of people who love to talk about beer and talk about our misadventures in beerdom. We are Beervengers, you are Beervengers, and we'd love to have you anytime you'd like to come and join us. But you can find us every single Wednesday right here on the live stream, as well as for those of you listening on the podcast, we'll be in your ears there too.
Yes. I also want to thank, I think I saw someone in here. We just recently reached I don't know if it's a milestone or whatever. We just passed 300 followers on Instagram, and our 300 follower is in this room tonight.
Oh,
look at that.
Yeah.
Shout out to person 300, Mr., Mrs., however you refer to yourself.
Well, she was here at the beginning. She might have left. I can't see her there now, but anyway.
Okay.
But she has been here tonight.
To
she's not here now. Yes.
Cool. Well, of course, thanks to Lake Monster for great beers for this first episode. You can check out more from them at lakemonsterbrewing.com. You can find more from us at brewvana.com. That's also where you can join the beer club and get great beers just like these shipped to you on a monthly basis. You also get access to the live stream where you could join in here and ask questions of our guests or just, heckle us in the chat if you want to come and voice your opinion that way. We're people of the people here.
yes.
You could also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Untapped, and YouTube at Brewvana. We'll be back next week with some great beers from two of our featured breweries, as we mentioned earlier, Uda Pills and Modest, and we'll be joined by a guest from Modest. Until then, be safe, be kind, and support your local breweries. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching Brews Less Traveled on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interviews with brewery professionals.